Space, the final frontier. Well, okay, not really. All right, take two. Here in the Mitten State, welcome to Code 47, bringing you all things Star Trek, spanning the quadrants, the best thing since the neutral zone.
Alrighty, Roo, back again on the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. This is Code 47, episode 108. I am your Trek Lord of West Michigan, Charlie Carden, Commodore of the 13th Fleet of Starfleet International, Captain of the USS Grand Petoskey, etc., a self-styled Huguenot, a legend in my own time, but I digress. I am joined, as always, by my faithful co-pilot, Lieutenant Peter Stein, Chief Engineer of our delightful chapter. Good evening, Peter.
Hello.
We were talking to the pre-roll. I enjoy the hell out of that uniform. Peter is, if you're not watching us on YouTube, Peter is, along with Jen, who couldn't be here tonight, is really good about suiting up when we record. I'm really bad about it because I tend to get overheated, even though I'm sitting in a basement. It'll be really easy when we get to the winter because it'll be
winter will be nice.
I'm sure it'll be freezing down here no matter what I do. But Peter is sporting the. Now I'm trying to remember. I don't think that's from The Cage, the unaired pilot, which was filmed in 1965. I think elements of that uniform survived into the second pilot, or
pilot used the exact same uniform.
Exact same. Okay, gotcha. So yes, therefore you're Jose Tyler, you're Lee Kelso, you're flying the ship, even though you have your back to the helm if you're looking. But anyway. Well, we're rolling into talking about the new season of Lower Decks, which I have mislabeled on the document, but we know what we're talking about. But before we get to that, as always, want to give love and respect to our fantastic Patreons. These are the folks who log in with us. They give a little bit every month to make sure that we're able to bring some additional great content to your ear holes. In my personal case, I produce a show called The Facts of Geek Life, which comes out twice a month, where myself and a guest break down a season of a classic show with fun satire and some social commentary. I was just talking with Peter tonight that we've got to get one going because we've not done one yet. We have fun doing that. And then my partners, Todd and Mark, also produce great content. If you visit patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite, you can do a free 7-day trial, give you a chance to check out our wares. And if you like it, feel free to stick around. But again, the folks who make it possible on our BFFs levels, that would be Sean, Stella, and Henry Nias. Missy Merchant, frequent collaborator to this program and to the Patreon, and Andy Milliken. And over on the Best Buds level is Jamie Prinky. So we are very grateful for your pitching in and making what we do possible one more time. Patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite. Free 7-day trial. And if you like it, feel free to stick around. All right. So we have a news story of sorts. Star Trek Day came and went. And Peter, did you watch like that little canned film that was starring Jerry O'Connell? That aired.
I heard about it, but I didn't see it.
You know, I think I watched. It was like 30 minutes long. I think I maybe watched 10 minutes, but I was like, because in the past, Star Trek Day, which is September the 8th, happened relatively recently, has been a big deal. You know, particularly it really started during COVID, I think back in 2020. Yeah. They would do a day's worth of programming where it was basically, Zoom meetings like all of us were doing for work back then, of talking heads. But it was like, here's the DS9 cast, here's some people from TNG or Picard or whatever. Well, with the SAG-AFTRA and the WGA strikes going on, nothing like that is possible. But they still wrangled Jerry O'Connell for this bit. I don't know if it was recorded beforehand or whatever it is. We don't need to get into the technical.
Full voice actors are kind of in a mode with that. So
right. I mean, they're still part of SAG-AFTRA, but yes, voice actor stuff. No, you're absolutely right. So that could have been, but I wonder, I don't know. It's complicated, I'm sure. But we did get what has been promised for us for several months, which was a very, very short trek. And this is really highlighting around the fact that 2023, which is when we're recording, if you're listening to this in the distant future, is the 50th anniversary of the original Star Trek animated series, which was produced by Filmation in the in the early 1970s, ran for 2 seasons. We've talked about that in the distant past of this program, and potentially the less said about the better. I don't know where you land, some good, some bad, but at any rate, in the style of that, we're getting a series of short treks, which are really kind of based around using current voice talent to produce 3-minute segments. We've gotten 2, but Peter, you've not seen the second one. I've watched the second one, but we're going to talk about the first one, which was called "The Skin of a Cat," and this was it was a very, very satirical segment. It did star the voices of comedian Pete Holmes. I'm a very big fan of his. I actually saw him during Laugh Fest here in Grand Rapids about 4 or 5 years ago. He was at Fountain Street. And then Ethan Peck as Spock, who obviously portrays Spock on Strange New Worlds. This is the first of 4 segments. We've gotten a second segment now, and we have another couple to look forward to. So, Peter, your thoughts on this? Where did you land with this animated segment?
At best, I can say I'm ambivalent. I appreciate the heavily poking fun at Star Trek, especially in the sense that sometimes people take things a little too seriously in the social commentary.
Yeah.
And so they were poking fun at that. I did enjoy that. However, it was just a little too silly for me.
I
really didn't like how they as we have found out over the course of the show, I really like Captain Kirk, and I didn't really like how they used the character. It clearly wasn't
right.
Shatner's Kirk. It was even animated differently to look like.
Right. He had a different hairstyle. It looked a bit like Pete Holmes.
To me, it was just bizarre. Like, why make it Kirk if you're not going to make it look like Kirk?
Right. And just to very quickly summarize, this is again a 3.5 minute segment placed on the bridge of the Enterprise, very heavily in the animated style of that Filmation program, where the Captain Kirk character, obviously backed by Ethan Peck as Spock, Holmes being Captain Kirk, is spouting out a lot of old timey expressions cliches as they're trying to get themselves out of a sticky situation. Skin of a cat, which is the name of the segment, but then it drills all the way down to. And then you have there's a Cation, the Cation actor who was the Cation character on that bridge. I can't remember it. Maress. So Maress, or a representation of the Cation race, which is essentially a bipedal cat, house cat, as we would know them if you're not familiar with the species, because we don't really see a lot of them in live action Trek. You get a hint here and there, but
they're here and there.
Yeah. We get one in Star Trek V, which some people would rather just forget. But anyway,
Star Trek 4. In the council.
And in the council. Yeah, that council was really that council, a little bit of tidbit, and Peter, I'm sure you know this being such a trivia guy as me, that was the last time we saw all 9 of the TV show principals in one shot. You had the 7 original, and then in the background you had Chapel and you had Rand. Because we didn't see Chapel again after Star Trek 4, if I'm not mistaken. So that was the swan song.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, yes, we're a bit off topic, which is something that we do here. But it got to the point where he would say skin of a cat. Then he would say something else. Yeah, it's all screwed up. So he had a guy who had a screw for a head. And then what was the butt one? I'm forgetting, because the other guy standing next to him had a butt for a head or something. I don't know.
It was something about being a butthead. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. It's just
stupid.
And it's I too enjoy funny ha-has. Most of the podcasts I listen to outside of listening to our own stuff are comedy based. So I enjoy comedy a lot, but this was just a little too it was very shticky in a way that I didn't really dig on. So I don't know. And I watched the second one, and it's kind of a gross out. Ethan Peck stars in it again. Hemmer returns. So
I like him.
Yeah.
So
we'll talk about that in probably the September 27 segment when we record again and we come out again in a couple of weeks. But yeah, I just don't know. I don't know. It's nice to see new content. We're going to hopefully get Discovery early in 2024. But as you and I both know, that's it. We're not likely to see potentially anything again in 2024. So, but not to dwell on that too much, but if this is what we're getting, this is what we're getting. So,
the only thing we might see is maybe some short treks of some sort, or maybe if they crank out a couple episodes of Lower Decks in the meantime.
Yeah, could be. I mean, and again, the other argument with Prodigy is, we're trying to find a home for Prodigy. But, as we've talked about a lot on SFU, Todd and I, somebody has to be able to afford to buy it. And these studios are starting to feel a pinch. They don't have the money. So I'm very curious to see kind of where this evolves. But yeah, animation is kind of the focus. And I chuckle at both the end of this segment and then the one that just came out. They say, discover Star Trek animation, Star Trek the Animated Series, Lower Decks on Paramount Plus. No mention of Prodigy whatsoever, even though the series itself does at least exist because you can purchase it. But I'm curious if that makes it canon anymore, or I would think it would be, because canon in the Star Trek parlance versus Star Wars is, if it's been on screen, it's canon. They haven't necessarily contradicted that to a point that I'm aware of. So I am kind of curious where the big fish regards Prodigy as being anything anymore. So things that I'm sure that we will learn more about as time goes on. So, okay. All right. Well, let's move on from that, and let's talk about the new season of Lower Decks. So, I was just retyping it as Slower Decks. Oh, that might be the name of the episode. Slower Decks season 4. There, that might be it. So anyway, yeah, this is a program that, listeners of the show will know that I've had kind of a weird history with. I loved it a lot, but there was a time a little while back before Peter came along, I had a couple of co-hosts who really disliked the show, kind of really colored the way I felt about it. Peter came along, was joined by Kay, and you guys really,
both just were relentless.
You bet. It was, if you're familiar with the Neil Diamond / the Monkees classic, made famous by Shrek for your generation, Peter, I'm a believer. You guys made me a believer. Absolutely correct. So this show came back, and now in its 4th season. It's so weird to think that it's been around that long, but no, we got it in the fall of 2020, and now it's 2023. So 1, 2, 3, 4. But yeah, we're going to be talking about 2 episodes. And the first of this is a little weird one for you, Peter, since I know this isn't your favorite series that they spoof, but I am interested to hear what you think. But I'll read it. Season 4, episode 1 is Tuvix, TWVIX, an obvious pun on the Tuvix season 2 episode of Star Trek Voyager, which is the topic of this parody. The Cerritos ensigns must assist a caretaker on the voyage of a historically significant starship, which is obviously Star Trek Voyager.
Even in the
puns, even in. So yeah, I just rewatched this today. I have actually seen the first 8 episodes, thanks to the good folks at Viacom Paramount. Want to give them a shout out for giving me the preview and renew. This season is fun. This episode does set up a through line that it's going to continue on with a kind of overarching, enemy that we're going to catch up with. So anyway, all right, Tuvix. Now, Peter, when it comes to Star Trek Voyager, you're not the world's greatest fan. And I'm really bummed that Jen was not able to be here. She had it complicated because she's kind of Voyager's greatest fan, particularly on the show. So instead of that, we get you, which I'm very happy about it. But I also love it when you and Jen are on diametrically opposed sides of anything. It creates good programming. So, but we will do the best we can. So talk to me about how you're feeling about this episode.
I actually really liked this one.
Yay!
I generally like Voyager may not be my favorite show, but I quite enjoy Voyager.
Yeah.
And so it was just like when they, revealed the ship with the musical score motif and all of that. Like one of the things that really sticks out to me in Lower Decks is how much they love the spaceships.
Yeah. Yeah. They're all fanboys. They really, they love every
the starships,
every bit of being Starfleet.
The way that they rendered the ships, the way that they rendered the interiors of the ships, like they're all very, very detailed. They got in trouble on Strange New Worlds when they rendered the animated version of the opening titles because it was too realistic. So these guys just really love that. But I thought it was quite entertaining how they're like bringing the Voyager now set up as a museum to take it to Earth for like basically hey, look, it's now set up as a museum before it goes off to the Fleet Museum that we saw in season 3. So that's just kind of fun. You have a little bit of Boimler's like doubting his ability to do anything, but also doesn't want to get a promotion because he doesn't want to leave his friends behind.
Right.
That's some character development there.
Yeah, I do like how they, and again, there was a great scene. Naturally, like you would expect, they end up, it's not like, oh, it's going to be very run of the mill. They end up in a situation where the Voyager itself is the issue because apparently nobody cleaned Voyager up after it
somehow
returned.
There's a macrophage. Somehow there's the stuff that causes the transporter.
Yeah, exactly. Because you have Billups and Dr. Tana have to beam back to the ship, but the Tuvix flower orchid landed on Billups' boot. So when they beam him, they turn into a merged character, and then they do a nice job turning that into like not only a super punchline ripping on the whole Tuvix thing, like she just straight up murdered Tuvix, don't you? Mariner says at one point in reference to Janeway.
Boimler said that.
Yeah, but then they just and also nice shout out to their appearance on Lower Decks last season, which was a lot of fun. Oh, that thing that we're not supposed to talk about.
Yeah, Voyager, not a big deal.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that Pike thing we're not supposed to talk about.
Exactly. But they turned it into a nice ongoing spoof where they start the same transporter accident happens with Dr. Miglimo and the captain's like, no,
start doing it on purpose.
Yeah, then they're just like, no, we're going to do it to everybody, which totally gets out of control. And then of course our people have to find a way to kind of correct the situation, which they do. And at the end,
a giant meat blob, thus absolving them of all moral responsibility.
All moral responsibility. Yeah, T'Lyn, who we obviously met her last season. We found out in the season finale that she was going to be a provisional officer, the return of the little Voyager lozenge, which I'm a big fan of. But she joins kind of like they say in sitcom parlance, she joins the cast as part of the regular deal. So they all solve it together, and at the end of it, it's actual promotion time. There's a promotion ceremony. Everybody gets a promotion, including T'Lyn, except for Rutherford, because Rutherford's like, well, I guess I didn't get a promotion because I broke something and blah blah. He's still just very chipper. He's very can-do
amazing attitude. Engineering stuff this time, so I don't get a promotion.
Yeah. Oh boy. But yeah, no, this was a fun episode, and again, I enjoy Voyager. Obviously, we've talked. We're all the way up to season 4 of Voyager, which will start as we go through the cycle in our segment 2. We're in TNG right now, so we'll go to TNG. We're in the 4s right now, so we're in TNG 4, then DS9, then we'll be back to Voyager. I enjoy Voyager in a lot of ways just because I was there for the whole thing. I was in college when it was on, and I've talked, pretty plainly that there was a part of it I stopped watching and I came back to it. But this is very endearing. But yeah, I like it how they're all just so meta about everything that they enjoy about the world that they live in, that they're not just like Riker or Kirk or Picard. They're all just like, oh, we got to do this. They're very reverent, and they're along for the ride. They're enjoying it, where you don't just get that kind of enjoyment out of the characters in other series in quite that fashion. So I dig it. It's fun.
Yep.
It's fun stuff. So, all right. Any final thoughts before we move on to talking about episode 2?
It was sad to see our Klingon friends from last season get blown up.
Right. Yes, that was the big stinger, is that we now have a big threat that is a, little, kind of oddly shaped spaceship that just shows up and annihilates another craft. And that, happens in the next episode as well. And I'm not going to spoil it, but there's a potential that's an ongoing storyline. You will find out. But yeah, that was a bummer. Yeah. So those were our Klingons that we were dealing with last time around. Yeah. And then, we see Romulans in episode 2, which would be, I have no bones, yet I must flee. That sounds like a title to a Discovery episode. They always get very sub-sophomoric, and they're titling. Mariner tries to get demoted, Rutherford tries to get promoted, and Boimler makes a big move. So, Peter, you're wearing the menagerie outfit. So explain to me what's going on with that and vis-a-vis this episode.
Yeah. So the reason that I'm wearing the cage and the uniform that you see in the cage and the menagerie is because we're going to a menagerie. Another race has just been randomly picking up other alien races to stick in a zoo.
No big deal.
Yeah, just like, how does that happen? I don't know. So 2 humans managed to get picked up and are now in this zoo. And so the
Whoops.
Cerritos is coming here to be like, yeah, you can't do that. That's not okay. And we're going to take them home. So, I mean, the caretaker seems to be pretty okay with it. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's like, they don't really give us all that much money. So, you know, whatever. You can
Right.
come back.
Yeah, right. That much money. It's not worth it. It's very Ferengi-like. So we do have the debut of another cutesy poo character, or so we think. And that would be a little fluffy blob that is, yes, capable of vocal communication as we understand it. It simply says Moopsie. And, you know, our away team is it's Mariner and it's Jack Ransom. And they're, you know, and did they bring Ensign Ricky or something? Wasn't there a third dude? Now
Gary or something.
Yeah, Gary. Ensign Gary. Which is, it was funny because not that long ago, Missy and I did for Patreon, we covered the first season of Family Guy, and that was the famous Ensign Ricky gig. You know, Peter's watching Star Trek, and he's like, holy crap, Uhura's black? Nobody's watching Star Trek, and he's like, all right, the away mission, Kirk, Spock, and Ensign Ricky. Oh, crap.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they're down in the menagerie, and yeah, they find, you know, Moopsie, the Moopsie character. Somebody bumps open the door, which we later find out was not a plot by Mariner to get herself demoted, which Ransom thinks that it was. We also get a nice tag in the beginning of this episode, an homage to the Price episode of TNG, where you have Bev and Troy in their very famous workout outfits, but we have Ransom and Shax in those same no, please. Yes, it's the stuff of
eyes
nightmares.
Were bleeding.
I know,
like,
but it's
I appreciated the hilarity, but it was just
right.
Like, oh.
Yeah, it's what this show does best. It's what they love on. But yeah, Moopsie is like, you know, the Moopsie critter just has Moopsie, but you know, gets free of its enclosure and gets into the enclosure next door, filled with these like scary razor beast things. And what Moopsie does is Moopsie opens its big razor tooth mouth, jumps onto one of the creatures, and sucks the entirety of its bones and organs up and eats them.
Liquefies its bones and sucks it away.
Which leaves it just a skin. And she gets married and saying, holy fuck!
Proper response to something like that.
Right. Very unexpected. But yeah, so Moopsie chases them around the museum. And naturally, you know, they find a way to get it back in. And, you know, it's revealed that Moopsie...
Mariner punching all of...
Right.
Ransom's teeth out.
Yeah. Punch all his teeth out so that they can use it like a trail of breadcrumbs, get him back. So... this was a fun one, I thought. I mean, that's my take. That was good. But again, you know, focusing on the character development, you know, everybody's looking at the advancement in ranks in different ways. And at the end of it, you know, Rutherford gets his due. Now everybody's a lieutenant. Lieutenant JG. Boimler
new quarters.
Yeah, exactly.
Through the whole episode. And then comes to find out, my first set of quarters, I could just dim the windows.
Exactly.
Everyone knew that the minute you did that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there'd be no way that'd be a usable room if it's always red.
Yeah,
so
it was pretty funny though.
Yeah, I know. I think so too. So I enjoyed it. Your thoughts, Peter, outside of what we've already talked about?
I thought that this was another great episode.
Yeah,
I thought that it was kind of cool. I mean, they did it in the Lower Decks style, but I thought it was fun how like Mariner is trying to like sabotage herself purposefully.
Right.
She believes that her commanding officer is going to like just demote her for no reason. And then Ransom is just simply like, yeah, I know that's what you're doing, but I'm not going to do that.
Right.
And so I really liked how they like, yes, Ransom is still like a meathead and a jock and all that, but like he's got her back and he wants her to do well. So I like that dynamic has gotten better.
Yeah.
In this season.
Yeah. Most definitely. Yeah, no, this is fun. And again, in continuing the through line of the mysterious annihilating alien, we get a nice segment at the end with Romulans. And it's funny because you have the two officers who are cleaning up from a Romulan torture chair. And one of them's like, oh man, why are we always on cleanup duty when we're torturing a Reman and you see him throwing body parts into a bag? Ugh.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're mopping into like an old cloaking device shell or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Just,
and then it's funny because much like the
I'm going to do my schemes. I don't have time for schemes.
Right, exactly. So so they update on the fact that Romulans are very backstabby. The same way in the previous episode, the Klingons will, do a life and death struggle. They're both holding the bat left knives at each other, and then they're like, "Hey, you want to join me for lunch?" Blah blah blah. So it's just like it's very run affair. But then the Romulans get wiped out as well, so we don't know what's going on with this mystery ship, but answers are coming. So it's fine. I'm loving on this. Again, it was tough because I got the screener, and naturally I watched him with April. Sorry, Viacom, if you're listening. We watched him together, but it was I got him midweek. I was out and about because I travel for work during the week. I saw that I got it. I said, I'll wait till I get home. We'll start watching him on a Friday night. And we only got, as opposed to the Lower Decks, we got 10 plays for that one. Like I could watch it 10 times. These was only 5. So I'm like, no, I really want to make sure I don't use those up. But we got home and we're like, yeah, we really ought to stretch these out. We had watched them all within 24 hours because it's just that much fun, and it's 22 minutes. So it's just not that hard to get sucked up in doing it. So this is fun, but again, don't do what I did. Savor the flavor. You're going to be rewatching this probably for the next year because it's going to be some of the last content we get. So definitely enjoy it. So awesome. Any final thoughts before we leave Lower Decks and get in the Wayback Machine and go back to 1990?
They are up to a good start, and I hope it just keeps on staying good.
Keep on keeping on.
Pretty much.
I love it. All right. Well, look at this. I love this no edit point, no pause for station identification because there's just the two of us. We're going to roll right on to the second part of the show where we are talking about Star Trek The Next Generation Season 4. This is part 2. Peter, sorry that you weren't able to join us last time, but here you are now. So we're going to launch into talking about 7 episodes that kick off or that continue the 1990 to 1991 season. And Peter, if I do my math correct, this is right around the time you were born. You were born in the early 90s,
in between season 4 and 5. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. You know who else was born between season 4 and 5? Gates McFadden's son. I remember that just because I read in that episode that she did, the Remember Me, where she had to do the stunt where she's hanging on the back of the chair. I was reading and I had that. I had that.
Right. Yeah.
I had that big blue Star Trek: The Next Generation compendium. The first one was blue. The revised one was red, and I think the final one was burgundy. So I had the blue one. It was when I was in high school that said, "Yeah, Gates McFadden found out the next day that she was pregnant, and her son Jack was born, in the summer of '92." So there you go. You kindred spirits. But anyway, yeah. So this was during a period of time I was in high school. I was not actively watching the show at this point. I've mentioned it before. I probably hung in there for the best of the both worlds, but it wasn't until early in season 5, and I have no idea what it was that clicked with me because I had been a Star Trek fan, since I'd seen Star Trek 4 when I was 10 years old in 1986. I don't know what made me finally go, oh, I want to watch this all the time. I'm all about it. But at this point I wasn't, which is a shame because certainly the first part, I should say the first quarter of season 4 is fantastic. When Jen and I were talking about it in our last episode, almost every episode we had a terrible time trying to figure out picking a best and worst. But
best of both worlds,
exactly. You had Legacy but we start to see a couple of cracks here. But anyway, I'll kick it off. Episode 7 of the season is Reunion, directed by Sire Jonathan Frakes. Story is Drew Deegan, Thomas Perry, and Joe Perry. But not Steve Perry. That's a Journey reference, which you don't. Oh, you got it. All right. Oh, thank you very much. Teleplay, Thomas Perry, Joe Perry, Ron Moore, and Bran Braga. Now, of all of those names, Ron Moore and Bran Braga are the ones that stand out. I couldn't tell you a damn thing about the rest of them. But again, you have Ron Moore, who's the guy who shapes all Klingon methodology, and then Bran Braga, who goes on to shape that much more of Star Trek and following series. From November of 1990, Worf's former lover, which it's just a weird way to say it, returns. Yeah, along with Picard, the two mediate a Klingon power dispute. Worf discovers more family. That's a weird summary.
That's a weird way to put it. It would be more
it's
like Worf's fling
yeah, it's like
returns with a son that he didn't
does that
know
mean
had.
he like meets his third cousin? I mean, yeah, Worf's third cousin. Like, oh, I think we have a new name for the episode.
Worf's fourth cousin, Gowron.
Yeah, right. Oh, Worf's fourth cousin. All right. So, so this starts. This is a fairly important segment. It kicks off something that is going to be influential, not only for the rest of the series with Klingon intrigue, but that will then bleed over into DS9. But it's very important for Worf's character because we're introduced to the fact that Klingons age a lot faster than humans and sometimes a lot slower than humans. Like they age really rapidly to a certain age, and then they slow down and age really slowly, because if you think about DS9, we saw Kang, Koloth, and Kor. They were in their hundreds, but they were good. They weren't like in wheelchairs or whatever. But Alexander, I read Alexander's Worf's son. Sorry.
Yeah.
Alexander would have been born in the early to mid third season, right around the episode The Booby Trap, because in a later episode of the series, he gives his birth date in a star date. So in this, that would mean he should be 6 months old by human standards, maybe a year, not quite a year, maybe around a year.
And he's clearly somewhere around like 4 or 5.
Yeah, he's around 4 or 5. He's articulate. He's, in the preschool or whatever. So that just proves that again, but again, we're slapping it against human standards, even though Kalar is part human, making, if she's half human, that makes this kid 1/4. So
he's 1/4 human. Yeah.
Yeah, 1/4 human. Sorry. Yeah, 3/4 Klingon. He looks perfectly Klingon. I mean, even though I believe in this appearance, he's played by a young man named John Stewart, who I believe passed away not that long ago under somewhat auspicious circumstances. But he goes on later in TNG, and then obviously later in DS9 as an adult. But in TNG, he's played by actor Brian Bonsall, who was the youngest brother on Family Ties, which was sitcom from the 80s, which you may or may not be familiar with, but which I absolutely loved. It was the vehicle that launched Michael J. Fox's career. So anyway, yes, he was little brother Andy. So anyway, but in this, he's John Stewart. Obviously, as a young kid, he doesn't have a ton of lines and plays not a tiny role in this, but certainly the bigger part is we meet Gowron for the first time, who will then turn around to be the emperor or the Klingon chancellor, who has a lot of ups and downs between here and his Waterloo at the end of DS9. And we see Duras again for the last time, but not the end of the family.
His legacy continues. But
his legacy with his bastard son does continue into seasons 4 and 5. And then at which point we do find out that he has 2 busty sisters. But I digress, not to put the cart before the horse. Awesome episode, tons of intrigue. Duras murders Kalar when off screen when they have a dispute.
Somehow he murders her on the Enterprise and gets away with it.
Yeah, well, it was behind closed doors, and he obviously just stabbed the shit out of her because they describe too many puncture wounds, and
and she was like thrown down onto a glass table. Like it's just it's a disaster.
I mean, and she's a warrior, but obviously,
Duras is a much bigger.
He's a bigger dude, and he's a little bit more traditional Klingon than she is. She's a diplomat, where he is just a hardened, evil, terrible warrior Klingon. Romulan.
Imagine all the worst things that you hate about Klingons, and that's Duras. Pretty much.
Yeah, you cram it all into one shit sack. It's the same guy.
Yeah. One of my favorite parts is when Worf is going after him. Picard walks in, Mr. Worf. Oh, stab.
Yeah, that was Riker, by the way. So Worf, no. Yeah, I love because he's fighting with a batleth, and I think Duras had a sword because they. I love that scene because. It's Worf figure out what's going on, and he grabs his batleth, takes the sash off, throws his badge down. He's like, I'm out of here. Love how anybody can use the transporter, like it's the city bus. Okay, I gotta go. And he beams over there. He walks into that room, and he's with, Gowron's man, and Gowron's man says, he's claimed the right of vengeance. And then Duras goes, you have no rights here, traitor. And he does this, excommunicated crossing of the arms. Yeah. And Worf goes, Kalar was my mate. And all the other guys go, oh shit.
Yeah, they're
take
done.
off.
It's like, oh,
Yeah.
this is that kind of fight. Nope.
Yeah, so I don't get involved in these family squabbles and shit. I'm out. And so they fight. And even though Duras is obviously quite a badass, Worf's quite a bit more of a badass. Even though, Duras is like, oh, I'm the only one who can clear your name. And Worf's like, fuck you, dude. And then, he knocks him down. And then the door opens. Riker and Data and Ensign Ricky have shown up to stop him. And they go, Worf, no. And you just see Worf do this nice big swing. Thump.
Yeah.
And then just, you don't see him plow it into Duras, but then you just see Duras's body go slump. And Worf goes, nice big exultation. So killer episode. Absolutely loved it. You got all the highs and lows. You also get Worf when he's having a conversation with Alexander. At the end of it, Alexander gets sent off to live on Earth with Worf's parents because, I guess he didn't want to have a kid around to cramp his style. I didn't want to have a kid yesterday. I don't want a kid today. But he does get in a very Darth Vader like, yes, I am your father. When the kid asks, are you my father? Yeah. So delightful. So anyway, I dug it. Great episode.
Also, it brings in one of my favorite characters, Gowron. So I really, really like Gowron.
Gowron actor Robert O'Reilly will be one of the featured guests at Grand Rapids Comic-Con, where Peter and I will both be in just 6 weeks. Man, that really just creeps up on us. But that's our local con here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. We've had a presence there for a number of years, and we always get along quite well with the Star Trek guests. So we have him, and we have J.G. Herskler, who is General Martok. So I'm very excited. I've interacted with him on social media, and I've met Bob O'Reilly. He was on, I said Baba O'Reilly, which is a song by The Who. Robert O'Reilly, or as I like to call him, Robert O'Gowron, met him on the cruise. He hosted a trivia night that I won, so I got to get up and shake his hand and all the different stuff. So cool dude, big eyes. That's kind of his claim to fame.
His thing.
That is his thing. All right. Moving on. What do we got next?
All right, episode 8, Future Imperfect, directed by Les Landau, written by J. Larry Carroll and David Bennett Karen. Aired November 10, 1990. Riker finds himself 16 years in the future. His memory of the interim is erased by a dormant virus.
How convenient. I love that this episode gave us a really cool uniform variant. It was our first badge that also signified rank, which became more of a thing in Star Trek Discovery. Because you got and Peter, I know that Fansets has made that badge. Do you have that one?
I have 2 of them.
You have 2 of them, yeah. I have the captain's one, which I'll toss on every once in a while, even though that's the captain
and the lieutenant one.
I think they
like getting a couple of the other ones because the color to signify the hat is cool.
Yeah, to describe it, if you're not seeing the episode, it's your Starfleet chevron with horizontal bars behind it, which are colored gold for a solid rank and colored silver for a half rank, like a JG or a lieutenant commander, and black for nothing. That's all the
crewmen who are walking around with just 4.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was, and that was something that was always kind of nice about to take a sidebar and talk about uniforms. Always drove me nuts, particularly with the uniform you're wearing. There's no signification. There's stripes on the sleeves of that.
On the cage, there's these don't really mean anything.
Yeah, exactly. But in TNG, everybody wears the same uniform, and rank is denoted by pips. A solid colored gold pip or a hollowed out, black and gold pip. But the enlisted people all wear the same uniform. If you are a senior NCO, like a chief petty officer, whatever it is, though it does evolve into DS9 where they get little embroidered patches that they wear in their neck. In that period, I just flipped this badge all the way upside down. Oh my goodness. Reliable magnet. But everybody wears the same uniform, so I could just look at someone without a thing and say, hey, petty officer, blah blah blah, or if I know them, crewman, something. But anyway, I love that. And when that same badge returns in season 7 in the episode Parallels, where Worf is dancing between realities, that badge returns, but it's matched up with pips on the collar, which I kind of prefer.
I like it when they have both.
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty cool. So, but anyway, so it's funny. It's, when you're like, it's 16 years in the future, which of course the show carries on, because if this is the year 2367, you add in 16 years would be 2374. 4 or so, which is during DS9. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's pretty obvious this is fake because none of the technology matches up. But yeah, during that time, Geordi doesn't get promoted at all, or he gets one promotion and he has normal eyeballs.
Yeah.
Yes, he does get eyes. Data gets one promotion and a red uniform. He's the first officer in this scenario. And then, Worf takes
an admiral.
Yeah, Picard becomes an admiral. First time that we see Deanna in regular duty jumpsuit, which becomes the norm for her in middle of season 6. She gets out of her cosmic cheerleader outfit once and for all. And then Worf is operations. He gets a promotion, but he has a scar. And it's interesting. So obviously the whole thing is a flim flam. As Riker goes through this, he figures out that it kind of makes sense, but it kind of doesn't. And then he has a son named Jean-Luc who is showing, and then a late wife, and her name was Min, and that must be short for something or other, but figures out as he's watching the video of her that it's this holographic girlfriend he had back in season 1 in a holiday program. So that's when he knows the whole thing is BS. And then that turns into a sub program where he's captured by Romulans. Then he figures out that's BS. And then this kid, Jean-Luc Barash, who looks like, one of the aliens from that book Communion from the 1980s, says, my name is Barash. And he does this. He does the Purple Rain. And then, he beams up with Riker. And then he is never heard from again. So I'm assuming he dies in the transporter. So whoops.
Either that, or we're going to see some Lower Decks reference to him. You never know.
Oh,
that's a lot of deep cuts. So
that seems pretty far on. I enjoyed this episode. I think it's a pretty perfect Star Trek episode. A little bit of mystery. How could they do this? How is this going to work out with the rest of the show? But for any experienced viewer, I think you probably pretty much figure out early on that it's kind of bunk. It's not really the way it's going to work out. So, but yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good ride. I always like uniform stuff, as I've obviously been blabbing about it for 5 minutes. That's just kind of my thing. I thought it was fun.
Yeah, it's a great episode. And one of my favorite Romulans, Tomalak, makes an appearance.
Oh,
yes, it's a fake version of Tomalak, but
yes,
I always enjoy having him.
As a matter of fact, we don't ever see him again. Because when we see him in the final episode, it's again an alternate reality. So yeah,
yes, technically,
yeah. So even though he's actually there, he's not actually there. Yeah. So it
was a missed opportunity in Nemesis. They should have had him.
Yeah, big time. Though that actor has since passed away. He might have passed away by that time. I'm not sure.
No, he was still. He was. I think he was well and truly retired at that point.
Yeah, because he went on to be a big character. Was it Jakar in Babylon 5?
Babylon 5,
that was another one of the big roles. Even though I'm not a fan of that show, I am aware of it. All right.
It's good.
Yeah, well, I know that on our Patreon recently, my partner Todd on his show Fansplain interviewed a very serious Babylon 5 fan. It's never clicked with me, but you know what? To each their own. I totally understand. Somebody could say the same thing about Ron Moore's Battlestar Galactica, which hopefully you and I are going to be talking about on Patreon, but that's my favorite. But some people look at that and say, blah, blah, blah. All fandom is not all things to all people, and I can totally appreciate that. Anyway, okay, episode 9, final but not final mission. Directed by Corey Allen, regular of the series. Story by Casey Arnold Ince. Never heard of that name. Totally a slush spec pile script if I was to bet fold money on it. Teleplay by the same individual and Jerry Taylor. Okay, so kind of the vibe that I get is when they buy one of these slush scripts, they toss it into the writer's room. And then the person who probably has the most vision or direction around that slush script gets the teleplay credit. That's what I'm saying. That's what happened in Reunion, because again, those are just not names I feel like we end up seeing again. So Jerry Taylor, of course, co-creator of Star Trek Voyager, and the only person who has ever written 2 novels that are considered canonical because they're about the Voyager crew.
Mosaic and then
Pathways.
I don't think I've read Pathways. I've read part of Mosaic.
You can find any of those plug for my friends at Simon & Schuster, who I also actually review books for. Those are available on Audible from Simon & Schuster. But what's annoying about those is because they came out so long ago. They came out in the mid-1990s. They're abridged down to about 2.5 hours, as opposed to I just bought the Certain Point of View Return of the Jedi Star Wars book. It's 20 hours long, so it's every word of that book.
Them's rookie numbers. Get a Sanderson book.
Yeah, pump it up.
5 hours.
Pump it up. Oh my God. Good God. All right. So the episode is from November of 1990. We really got off on a tangent on that one. Wesley sets off on his final mission with the Enterprise, accompanied by Picard. They become stranded on a desert planet. Couldn't have seen that coming in the first 5 minutes when they get on a shuttle with some random asshole.
That's a piece of junk.
Yeah, exactly.
Literally, you should hear Luke Skywalker from episode 4. What a piece of junk.
I would sooner get on the Outrider from Shadows of the Empire than I would get on this guy's shuttle. It literally looks like a Ford Pinto, which I don't know if you're at all familiar with that.
Maybe what they were basing it on.
Exactly. The Ford Pinto, dear listeners, if you're not aware, I'm from Detroit, so it's particularly near and dear to my heart. The Motor City was a vehicle that was quickly taken off the market when they found out that rear-end collisions would make the gas tank explode. That's pretty much what this Durgo, that's pretty much what his little shitty shuttle was. So yeah, they fly off, they instantly crash, and that gave us some really nice location shooting, in the Mojave Desert, north of LA. And, it gives Wesley and Picard some really great bonding moments, which, it kind of harkens back to the episode in season 2. It wasn't the Samaritan Snare. Well, it was the Samaritan Snare. Yes, it was, because the A story introduced the Pakleds, and the B story was
Picard going to the hospital.
Picard going to Starbase to get his cardiac replacement, which was so dumb because the only person who could fix it was already on your ship. Oh my God. Kay and I had quite a fun time trashing Dr. Pulaski. She's not a fan. But anyway, I digress. Cool episode. Again, I saw this one years after it aired. The guy who played Durgo was a cast member on another sci-fi show in the late 70s called Space 1999, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know that I've ever seen that show. I think Martin Landau, who was the main character in that, was the other front runner to be Spock before Leonard Nimoy got the role. So there's yet another Star Trek connection. But yeah, the character of Durgo, the shuttle captain, he's so super one-dimensional. Got a big chip on his shoulder, thinks he's king shit, even though he's flying around an even crappier version of the Outrider from Star Wars. And he gets himself killed. Because he's like, I know what I'm doing, because they walk through the desert, they go into this cave, they find water, but naturally the water is protected by a shield or whatever, and if you mess with it, it zaps you, and so it kills him. But Wesley figures it out by doing some shit with the tricorder, and then saves Picard's life, but then gives him the, oh, Picard, everything I've ever done for you, you're my real father, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. Father-son stuff, because again, it's a father-son relationship between the two of them, obviously at its core, it always speaks to me. So I enjoy that kind of stuff. That's always been a dramatic touchstone for me. When you and I talk about Battlestar, you'll see that how much that father-son dynamic, really hits me where I live. So I enjoyed this episode kind of for that reason. But yeah, I thought Durgo was way too one-dimensional, but he also but in a way he also kind of served his purpose. So I mean,
he kind of had to be the way that they needed to.
Yeah,
he was kind of like the red shirt to establish danger, but they needed to have a reason for him to be that dumb to touch the thing.
He's the guy who kicks the beehive. I'm just gonna hits the beehive with a baseball bat. Just a friggin' moron.
I'll be totally fine. Die.
Yeah, it's no big deal. This is going to work out. So this is cool. So at the end of it, obviously Picard gets rescued and Wesley goes off, and we don't see him again until season 5 when he's, he's hooking up with Ashley Judd, and then we see him in the game in season 5. And and then we see him in the first duty when he's on kind of a bad path, and then et cetera,
with not Tom Paris,
with Tom Paris's fourth cousin.
Yeah,
exactly. Oh my gosh! All right, the next one is yours, and I got to tell you.
Really? Okay. Episode
you know what?
10.
Completeness to say, we got to do this. The real goal of the show is we talk about every single Star Trek.
We'll have to touch Sub Rosa too, as much.
Oh my God, that's going to be a fun one.
All right, episode 10, The Loss, directed by Chip Chalmers, teleplay by Hilary J. Bader and Alan J. Adler, and Vanessa Green, story by Hilary J. Bader. Aired December 29th, 1990. An unknown force captures the Enterprise and causes Deanna to lose her empathic powers.
Oh my
God.
God.
Not as interesting as it sounds.
My biggest chip with this episode, no disrespect to Chip Chalmers, who directed the episode, is that Deanna is just awful in this. She's really shitty to Beverly. She's really shitty to Riker.
And she's really shitty to her other client.
She's lippy to Picard. Yeah, she's lippy to that actress who plays the Ensign Brooks or whatever, who she's counseling. shows up again as another character in Generations as Picard's Nexus wife. So there you go.
Right.
There's a little trivia for you. But yeah, this is like what. How much more obnoxious can she be? Oh, no, my powers anymore, and my powers are the only thing that basically define me. You know, it's like having a friend who their job is all they can ever talk about. That reminds me of my brother. That like their job is their entire identity. Okay, well, you got fired from your job. What do you got? I got nothing. And, you know, it's not great commentary on her as a character. No, you know, it really makes me strongly dislike her because I'm like, oh, okay. Well, let's say I was a patient of hers and I had been a patient of hers for a few years because let's say we've all been on the ship together for a few years together. And she just dumps me because, okay, well, you know, any other counselor that you've seen, and even Picard says, you know, most captains don't have the benefit of having a Betazoid counselor on their ship. They just have a regular person. And she's like, oh, that's not good enough. I mean, she's saying that the only reason she's good at what she does is because she can sense people's emotion. That sucks. That's totally bogus. That's what you got on your CV. That's on your resume.
Well, also, went to, like, she studied that in school and stuff. It just seems like a little...
Yeah, I mean, this is in a season that has had a lot of hits. This is the first one that I think is just trash. This is bad. Now, keep in mind when we get later in the season, we do have Night Terrors, which is even bigger trash. But this was, I found
Deanna usually gets the short end of the stick in TNT when it comes to the bad episodes.
Yeah, but this was one of my least favorite of the series.
Which is sad because Deanna gets a lot better in the films.
Yeah, without a doubt, she does get some juicy stuff to do. But yeah, this was a dud for me. I was really disappointed how, you know, Deanna turns out being one of those people saying, "Oh, my job, and I'm so special because blah blah blah." That when she doesn't have that one thing, now I'm a vengeful bitch and I'm going to take it out on everybody. That's not cool. I'm just not down. I'm just not down with that.
Yeah, I mean, there is something to it. Like, I've seen that happen to it, like, not to the same extent, but like, it's a thing that happens, but it just didn't really work for that particular character. So I get what they were trying to do, but it didn't really land. And the two-dimensional aliens were an interesting idea.
Yeah, very Star Trek. I like it.
It's been done a couple other places too.
Yeah,
I know that the Orville did it in like season 1 or 2.
I'm sorry, what was the name of that show?
The Wright brothers.
There you go. I prefer that.
So like, it's an interesting concept that two-dimensional beings, two-dimensional space interact with three-dimensional space.
Yeah.
But outside of that, like, it's just not a great episode.
Yeah, big time. But anyway, all right. We trudge on forward to an episode that I think is better, but it does give us a really terrible female stereotype in a character
we also
that
get the meme.
Oh, we were talking. Episode 11 is Data's Day. Robert Weimer is the director. Story by Harold Apter. Again, slush pile. Teleplay is Harold Apter, and polishing up this turd is, well, I know that's unfair, but polishing up this script is Ron D. Moore, who I was super disappointed about a week before we got out to Vegas for Star Trek Las Vegas. He canceled, and he was. Man. I would say, because I've met a lot of Star Trek people just doing shows and going on the cruise, but Ron Moore was one that doesn't really do shows. And so I was really heartbroken that he wasn't going to be there because I'm such a huge admirer of his work. He's just done a lot of great stuff. Mm-hmm. Anyway, this was first episode of 1991, January 1991. Data gets dancing lessons from Dr. Crusher. That's a weird way to introduce the plot of this. That's not what the episode is about.
No, that's like halfway through the episode.
Yeah, exactly. In preparation for Chief O'Brien's wedding, as the Enterprise brings Ambassador T'Pel. How many different T''P-L names can we have? T'Paw, T'Pring. Yeah, everything's got to be a T'P.
The thing that most people had for Vulcan names for the longest time was males begin with a S and have some sort of hard consonant, and female names begin with a T and a P.
A T and a P. TP, toilet paper.
And then, Savick happened.
Right.
So,
yeah, exactly. Bringing this Ambassador T'Pel to the Romulans for negotiations. So we get we get an A-B story in this, but the whole thing is a framing sequence around Data writing a letter or dictating a letter, because there's no writing or whatever. So basically he's it seems like this would be solved it would be a text conversation, but he's recording a letter to Commander Maddox, who is the guy who tried to kill him in season 2. But now they're, at the end of that, they kind of squash their differences. But Maddox obviously catches his Waterloo in the first season of Picard. But anyway, Maddox does not appear, but Data is conscripting this letter, and he's talking about his experiences in what is not a typical day, because obviously there's some different stuff happening, but what is a typical day on the Enterprise? Expect the unexpected. Starfleet, weird is part of the job. But anyway, we're getting the wedding of Chief O'Brien, which kind of comes out of nowhere, because we've never met his intended before. This is her first appearance. It's actress Rosalind Chow, who was previously known for being Klinger's wife in MASH and After MASH. If you watch that sitcom in the 80s, like I did, because it was like Seinfeld in the 90s, which, again, I know you're not that familiar with Seinfeld, but MASH was, for the longest time, and even probably at least top 5, the finale of that show in 1983, most watched program of all time. Mm-hmm. It was for the longest time. But anyway, so we get Rosalind Chow as Keiko Ishikawa, later O'Brien. Sorry to jump forward and think that they actually does go through at the wedding. But at the beginning of it, she's like, yeah, I don't want to get married and blah, blah, blah. And then Chief O'Brien's like, where the hell did this come from? And then there's just a lot of out of character shit going on in this episode. Geordie's like, oh no, they're going to get married. But like, when does Geordie know a damn thing about women? When does Geordie ever get a woman? We know that he eventually settles
he gets
down.
married at some point.
Right. But it takes 35 years for him to finally settle down. But yeah, I mean, he's the strikeout king in this show. So he's acting like, she just got jitter. She's going to blah, blah. And so, yeah, she's, she yells at Data, go away, leave me alone. And then at the end of it, she's just very schizo and says, no, it's time for me to go get married or whatever. I just, talk about starting off on a bad foot. Keiko's got a bad rep all the way through DS9 as being like a super duper ballbuster to Chief O'Brien, who is, they're basically the first, real married couple of Star Trek that we get. And we get to see them from when they get married and they have a child, and they have another child, and they go through a lot of trials and tribulations throughout their, but I know we got a lot of them in this episode. This is the Rimshot episode. I just I couldn't help myself but really hate her guts very early on in this episode. So anyway, that's the A story, and the B story is kind of standard fare. You have a really stuck-up, obnoxious Vulcan ambassador who's pushing everybody around and being really cagey. She fakes her death in a transporter accident. And beams over to this Romulan ship where she's a Romulan spy, and our people figure that out and go back and figure it out. So that's a pretty run of the mill plot line. We do get, as a Romulan captain, God, I'm forgetting the actor's name, but he's just a really like Shakespearean solid dude. Acts the hell out of that role, and I'm drawing a blank on his name.
1 second.
Alan something. Anyway,
yeah.
So I would give this episode.
Scarfy.
Alan Scar. There you go. Actually, his name actually came up. This is no joke. Weird little memories. I took my last summer term at MSU, so 25 years ago. I took a Shakespeare class, and the professor on blah, 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 dropped Alan Scarfy's name, and I said, oh, I know who that is, but I didn't say how, because I'm like, oh, and I'm a nerd, because being a Star Trek nerd back then didn't have the same cachet it does now, where we're obviously making millions of dollars making this show. This episode was like I don't know. This is a little flat for me. I can't get over
minus.
I can't get over how much I really hate Keiko, and that's maybe because, with the exception of my beloved April, I've had some bad relationships in the past with some really not nice women. Maybe it's PTSD for me for that kind of stuff, but I just did not care for the way she treats Chief O'Brien. She gets better, and then a little bit worse, and a little bit better, and a little bit worse. I don't know. Boo on Keiko. There's my message.
She's a human. She does dumb things.
Yeah, exactly. Correct. All right. Well, any other thoughts?
We finally get to see Gates McFadden's dancing ability brought out.
Yay.
So that's kind of fun. But
she is delightful. And she has a wonderful podcast, and I saw her again in Vegas. We'd met before at Grand Rapids Comic-Con probably 5 or 6 years ago. But I was chatting her up about a podcast that she has done 2 seasons of called Investigates, Gates, where she interviews her Star Trek co-stars, but absolutely nothing Star Trek related, just completely about their lives. And they're this, she had a great recent season where she interviewed Shatner, she interviewed Anson Mount, she's, talked to Brent, she's talked to Frakes, just a wonderful show. And she was telling me, and I've already forgotten, well, get in touch with blah, 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 and tell them, you want to hear more of the show. So I hope, Gates, not that you'll ever hear this, that I sent an email. I believe I did. I did the same on Marina's behalf, because I said, Marina, we want to see you back on the cruise. And she's like, send an email to so-and-so. I definitely did do that. And I think I did with Gates as well. And maybe I Twittered or I X'd her over on X. But anyway, hopefully they both get what they're going for. But yeah, she's a delightful woman. So, all right, moving on. Episode 12, a winner, introducing the greatest of the greatest of Star Trek villainous races. And take it away.
Marco Lamo makes an appearance.
Yes.
So
as a fourth cousin.
Yes, another one.
The fourth cousin episode.
So episode 12, The Wounded, directed by Chip Chalmers, story by Stuart Charno and Sarah Charno and Cy Chermak, teleplay by Jerry Taylor. Aired January 26, 91. A rogue Starfleet captain jeopardizes the Cardassian peace treaty.
Oh, so we do get the Cardassians. They're wearing some whack outfits. I mean, what they're wearing is not super duper different than what they end up with. I mean, what they end up with when we see them.
They did remove the helmets, which was probably a good call.
The helmets were where they were basically like it was a reverse of old timey football helmets, where it's like kind of a weird clamshell on their face. And they're actual bodysuits. And again, when you're a Cardassian, you literally own one outfit for your entire life. They change their outfits exactly twice. I think this weird outfit and the one that we come to see regularly must have existed contemporaneously, because in DS9 flashbacks that are before this time, you see the traditional Cardassian outfit. So these must be like,
culture being what it is, it's very likely that they have not changed anything militarily. In centuries.
Right. Well, and you see how that ends up playing out for them. But this is great. We don't often get another Starfleet captain in a starring role, but we get actor Bob Gunton, who is the warden from Shawshank Redemption, an awesome film that aired after this came out on one of Stephen King's not only finest novels, but definitely one of it, probably his very best film adaptation. And I think, I think it's been considered his favorite. We watched it not that long ago, and I just forget what a great flick that is. And of course, it's on TNT on basic cable 5,000 times a year. So you trust me, even if you don't know if you've seen it, you've seen it.
If you haven't seen it, you've probably seen part of it. Yeah.
And if you haven't seen the whole thing, there's your recommendation for the week that's non-Star Trek related. Go see the Shawshank Redemption. Tim Robbins and Morgan Freeman. What a great episode. Oh my God. So you really get to see that, even, when we find out, we have a rogue Starfleet captain who's flying around in Cardassian space, blowing up Cardassian stuff, and nobody knows what's going on. So even from the briefing at the beginning, and we see Admiral, is it Hayden? And it's not the first, heavyset black dude, who we also saw in the episode The Defector, though it was a taped call he was listening to. Hayden reveals to Picard, Ben Maxwell is out there. Says Picard goes, Ben Maxwell, he's one of Starfleet's finest captains. And this is a great exploration of the fact that even the best of the best of the best of us are, in this case, still human beings, and we're still going to fall. Yeah, we're going to still, fall vulnerable to the cleavages of PTSD. Here was a guy whose whole family was killed by Cardassians. This is a year or so after the Cardassian peace treaty was signed, partially negotiated by Edward Jellicoe, who we will meet in a couple of seasons and not like very much. Yeah. But this is a moment to shine for O'Brien. I mean, the last act, when I think the second to last scene, once Maxwell and his ship, the Phoenix, is also the first Nebula class ship we see, if I'm not mistaken. He's broken loose and he's going to blow up another Cardassian ship, and O'Brien manages to beam over, and O'Brien, having served under Captain Maxwell in the past, they have this very tender moment where they sing a song together, and it's a tearjerker for me. This is a
really good episode, and one of the things that's really nice about this one is it gives, I think it was one of the main reasons why O'Brien was tapped to go off to Deep Space Nine. It was because that character. They allowed this character to breathe in this episode, and he really held his own.
big time. I mean, he had more screen time than any other character in this episode, which you don't often get, certainly in this series. In DS9, we had this great extended rotating cast where Garrick would get an episode or Rom would get an episode, but it really did not happen in TNG because you had your 7 core people, and that was basically it.
And then you had a few more, but it was primarily just them.
Yeah. So this really ruled. So yeah, this was a strong entry, and again, Picard knows the deal, and he's having this conversation with Ducat's fourth cousin, who is Gul Macet. Yeah. And I think it's funny, even in the DS9 relaunch novels, it is established that they're related. But like I said, I've now changed the episode to simply the fourth cousins because we've made we've had so many. Picard knows that this guy's dirty as shit. You know what I mean? So he's like, yeah, go back to your people, Macet. Tell them, we know the deal. Fuck off.
We know that you're up to nothing good.
Yeah, exactly. Just get out of here.
We still don't know about Bajor.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right.
The audience hadn't yet.
Yeah, we find out about that. Though, we find out about it early in season 5 with the episode Ensign Rowe. But it's revealed that the Bajoran culture has been known to the Federation for centuries. It's revealed that Picard says, well, I remember in that episode, he says, I remember reading about the ancient Bajorans in my 5th grade reader. So they're well known. So a race that I think has been referenced in Strange New Worlds, if I'm not mistaken. So
their text was referenced. Yeah. As was Cardassian, which was a little weird, but the Bajoran stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, cool. All right. Let's take it home with episode lucky number 13, an adaptation of a Star Trek Phase 2 script.
Yeah. I think it's your turn to
Oh, is it really? My bad. Episode 13 is Devil's Due. Tom Benko is the director. Here we go. Story by Philip Lazabrinick and William Douglas Lansford. These guys were probably dead by the time this came out because the script was 20 years old, was 15 or 20 years old at this point. Teleplay by Philip Lazabrick. Okay, so this didn't have any writing credit of the established writing team, which is maybe why it wasn't that good. Feb of 1991, a powerful mythic figure from a millennium previous returns to enslave a planet in accordance with a contract. However, Picard is convinced she is an opportunistic charlatan, words that don't get used. He says a flim-flam con artist. Barnum, PT, guest star is Marta Dubois as Ardra. Marta Dubois, previously known to, I won't say genre fans, but just fans of TV in general, as Magnum P.I.'s wife from Magnum P.I. The good one, not the one that's on now, which just looks really stupid. But my mom loves it because it's on CBS. Not that I have to come out and say it, but CBS is catnip for old people. That's part of my ongoing war, my ongoing ambivalent feelings about CBS as a network. Very Star Trek-y kind of story. There's a blah, blah, blah. Something's not what it seems. But it's weird to me that middle of 4th season, they're still stealing a script that was written in the 1970s. If you're not at all familiar, dear listeners, and I just watched something about this recently, just a YouTube clip that just kind of refreshed my memory. When the people at Paramount saw how successful Star Wars was in 1977, they said, hey, how can we exploit people loving science fiction? Oh, we own Star Trek. Maybe we should put it back on TV. It's been successful in syndication for a decade. So they spent millions building sets and writing scripts and hiring actors. And then they finally said, we're not going to really be able to launch a network around this, the Paramount Network, which they did in the mid-90s with Voyager. So all of those scripts got shelved, except for the one that they built and turned into Star Trek The Motion Picture. This was one of 2 scripts that survived into TNG, the first one being the much reviled season 2 premiere, The Child, where Troy has a baby for no reason. And then there's this one. I just don't really know what to think about this one. I mean, she's a pretty lady and all, but she's very seductive and Picard's not falling for it and blah, blah, blah. I don't know. Captain Kirk would have nailed her in the first 5 seconds. So I don't really see how this could have been a good TOS phase 2
Kirk
script.
Also probably would have picked up on her crap pretty early on too.
Yeah, exactly. But she would have been like, he would have been like, all right, I'll sleep with you, but I'm not going to like it.
He would have done it differently, I'm sure.
Yeah. So that's what makes it so weird when you look at this. written by these two dudes who obviously wrote it back in the 70s. That there was clear.
Philip Lazebnik rewrote it at Michael Pillar's request.
Okay.
So
okay.
William Douglas Lansford may have been the originally. I just looked this up because I didn't know that it was a Phase 2 script, or if I did, I forgot.
Sure,
but it was originally a script idea written by Roddenberry.
Oh, there you go. Gotcha.
Which probably explains why it deals with the subject matter that it does.
Right. Yeah. Right. So yeah, I mean, I thought it was okay, but. I don't know. I can't really put my finger on it.
I generally like this one. I don't know why.
Yeah. You see what I mean? It has a weird quality.
I find this one funny. Probably mostly for me, it's probably because it's just the random crap of like, I am the devil, and then I am Feklar. You are not Feklar. Like there's all this,
and he turns into this really ripped dude with a melting face. It's like, oh, okay,
well, that's Feklar. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. It's super gross.
The Klingon devil, and
yeah, exactly.
Like, it's interesting to me how it's like it's clear that she's a charlatan, but it's interesting how they try to put the idea that the devil is this, cosmic being that just like flits across and harasses people.
Right.
And just like a lot of the same traits, like you have the attempt at seduction, the threats, you have all these different things that go across. And then there's just a lot of interesting details in there that I find rather interesting. Also, how you have Data as the judge at the end because he's the most objective. He has no dog in the fight.
Yeah, he's like, I have ruled.
and then all of a sudden, Picard gets access to her whole bag of tricks, and then it just becomes even more hilarious because that's like, goodbye, Ardra. Come back if you can.
Yeah, right. And she did actually end up having a return if you followed the DC Comics run of Star Trek The Next Generation, which much like it launched in 1989, same time as the second run of the TOS DC comic run, which was set during the film era between Star Trek 5 and 6. She did get she got a return. I think Okana got a return. The kid from the Bonding got a return. So comics, a comic book in Star Trek, at least that was following a current show, and even some of the older ones always brought in old storylines just to kind of enhance.
Currently, Star Trek Online does that. They haven't done it with Ardra yet,
right?
But they brought back, like for instance, Gowron.
Right.
We found where Gowron went.
Bring him on back. Well, he went to Stovacor. That's where he went.
Eventually he did.
Yeah, right. Gotcha. All right. Well, that wraps up this pack of episodes. So let's do a favorite and a least favorite. You get to go first.
Okay. Well, I think for my favorite, I'm gonna have to go with The Wounded.
Totally. Same.
It's just a great episode.
Right. And very humanizing.
Very human.
Even to a character that we're meeting.
It's just a human experience of going through this sort of stuff.
And given our first real impression of the depth of a character that O'Brien is and the depth of acting prowess that Colm Meaney has as O'Brien, which becomes such a pivotal character in Star Trek as we go forward. So yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah, it's like The Wounded. It's just a fantastic episode. If I have to pick a worst, it's probably The Loss.
Oh my God, we're eye to eye on this one. God,
it's just not a good episode.
Super annoyed by the fact that Troy is like, oh, my empathic abilities are my entire personality. It's like that girl you knew in high school who, if she was dating a guy, that was her whole world. And that was my whole identity. And then they break up and she's just devastated. She just has nothing to do, blah, blah, blah. I've known too many people like that in my time. Absolutely do not care for it. So, all right. Well, okay. We will be moving along in our next episode to cover the back half of season 4, which gives us some less than great episodes. But we will address that as we come along. Peter, it's fun to go back old school and have it just be you and me again. Where do people find you out there?
You can find me on the interwebs at Petrus Aquinas. I am there. I don't do much. You can also find me on ELH's YouTube or Twitch, where I play a Vulcan chief engineer.
Excellent. And he's our chief engineer over on the USS Grand Petoskey, which I'll talk about in a minute. But you can find me over on X Twitter. I am at the C3. Go ahead and spell it out. I spend a lot of time there. Don't really mess around on Facebook. Dabbling a little bit more on Instagram, where I'm at the C3. You can find me. Spell out the C again. No, excuse me. At C3 Carpenter. Sorry. You can find me. But anyway, I am very proud to be the commanding officer of the USS Grand Petoskey, of which Peter is one of my senior staffers, my chief engineer. We are one of the biggest chapters of Starfleet, the International Star Trek Fan Club. We are based here in West Michigan, but we have members all over the state of Michigan. I am also very privileged to be the regional coordinator for Region 13, which is Michigan and Eastern Canada. We are opening up new chapters all the time. We have a new one here in Michigan. We're working on another one. If you have interest in leadership, or if you would just like to meet other Trekkers, Google Region 13 and certainly visit us at the Grand Petoskey website or find us on socials, and we can connect you. With that, fair friends, I'm going to bid you adieu. Thank you again to our wonderful Patreons. I'm going to tell you that sharing is caring, and to keep on trekking.
Peace and long life.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. Visit secretfriendsunite.com for more great shows, articles, news, reviews, and more. Secret Friends Unite podcasts are available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and other podcast services around the world. If you'd like to be part of the conversation, you can join us on Facebook or our new Discord server, or follow at Secret Friends U on Twitter. Please subscribe to Secret Friends Unite on YouTube and visit our merch store at tpublic.com. Just search Secret Friends Unite. Thanks for listening.